Interesting. Niners quarterback situation promises to be one of the hot topics in the NFL throughout the offseason. And we're
Every
already seeing it.
offseason.
I saw Vernon Davis said he thinks that Trey Lance, not Brock Purdy, is the future for the Niners. Tony Gonzalez did an interview with our friend Jennifer Lee Chan from NBC Sports Bay Area, and he says he compares Brock to Tom Brady. He says, really, I think the most impressive part of Purdy is his ability emotionally never to get too high, never to get too low. Reminds me of a great quarterback, someone like Tom Brady. That personality style where it's like, hey, next game up. Yeah, we had a big win, but we got to go out and play. The moment is never too big. It's never too bad either, no matter the situation. And then he goes, it's uncanny. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Talking about Purdy's, sudden rise. He goes, that hidden gem being Mr. Irrelevant, that last pick in the draft to come in and have the composure that he had and the ability to throw the ball. And then he says, I'm really anxious to see what they do at that position going into next year, obviously, because of all the injury ramifications. Interesting though, isn't it? That, you get different people saying different things. There's seem to be like some faction of the football world that's like, hey, Brock's the guy. And then
hmm
there's others that are like, hey, you know what? No, Trey's the better long-term option. And it's really interesting to see it in, football people are commenting on it. Niner content creators on Twitter are making their points. Ryan Hensley, who I had on the show last week, he was tweeting about it early today. It just this ain't going away. This ain't
No,
going
and
away anytime soon.
sometimes, look, Larry, I think this is the biggest question mark they've had at quarterback, despite the fact that they've had a question mark at quarterback coming into basically every offseason in Shanahan's tenure. This is the biggest pivot point where it feels like we don't know where this is going because we have one quarterback that's rehabbing that you think is going to be ready for the offseason that you know nothing about, but you know enough about to draft him third overall and trade the sun and the moon to do that. You have another quarterback who kind of fell into your lap when you took him as Mr. Irrelevant just so that you didn't have to be part of the bidding market for the undrafted free agent with him. And it turns out he plays as well as any rookie quarterback in 7 games, but he's about to have a very, very serious elbow surgery that could be even more serious. I think it's a giant question mark. And sometimes I believe that the 49ers like it because it keeps them relevant. And at the end of the day, the NFL is a business. And I'm sure Jed York's happy that every offseason, to everybody, the 49ers are one of the most interesting teams in the NFL because we constantly have to talk about what they're doing at quarterback.
Seriously. What the Niners are doing at quarterback is more compelling than will the Warriors get Kevin Love in the buyout market or how many games will the Giants win in 2023 for sure. Interesting article, Mike Florio writing about Trey Lance, and Trey Lance went on a show and basically was talking, and he was talking about the Rand Carthon rumors and about how he put his fingers crossed and how Shanahan joked him about it and this and that. And he says, then he goes, basically, Trey goes on to say, I love it here. I don't ever want to be anywhere else. When you hear that, what do you think? And let me ask you this. How long can the 49ers keep both? How long how long will the 49ers keep both quarterbacks?
At least
And
this year for sure. They can
but how
keep
long do you
both of
think it
them this
works? Do you
year.
think it? Do you think they keep them 2 years, 3 years? I mean,
I
Trey
don't
just said
look
he doesn't ever want to be anywhere else.
um I mean, it's easy to say that. That's partially, no offense to him, not in his control.
Right.
I mean, he can play well too, but that's not necessarily completely in his control either. So yeah, and a lot of people say a lot of things, right? Like Kyrie Irving said he wanted to remain in Boston for the rest of his career. Kyrie Irving said after the 2017 finals that LeBron James is a savant. He's so happy to play next to LeBron James, and then proceeded to request a trade. Um, and a couple months later and was traded for Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder. I mean, not everybody is Kyrie Irving, but Larry, you get the gist of the fluidity of sports and how everything is day to day, year to year. The thing about keeping them, I think they can absolutely keep both this year, and they could possibly keep both next year. But the problem with keeping both, with projecting keeping both, is, Larry, these aren't like two proven commodities, right? That are coming to battle it out. We have one guy that looked really good, but it was only a 7 game sample size. And then we have one guy that has a lot of talent that it hasn't looked so great, but it's also looked pretty good at times, but has like a 2 game sample size. So we're not working with any sample size here to say, like, oh no, this is going to turn into a conflict, because neither guy has proven that much. And of the two, Purdy has proven more, but even what he has proven is only a 7 game sample size of excellent play.
I'm reading an article here that just makes me laugh. There's a there's a guy on, where is it? Oh, here it is. Mike Tanier or Tanier of Football
Yeah,
Outsiders
right.
wrote this about Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And he's talking about, he goes, this ain't your daddy's quarterback controversy. It's a plucky white underdog who just wins against a black dual threat who is starting to look like an ultra talented enigma. Wait, this is exactly your daddy's quarterback controversy. I don't know what race has to do with any of it, by the way. Then he goes on to say only the 49ers could build a quarterback controversy out of, wait for it, Diet Mac Jones and the football equivalent of cryptid, yet barely cracked the nonsense top 5. So he's calling Brock Purdy Diet Mac Jones. Diet Mac Jones? Come on. That's selling Purdy short. He's better than that.
Yeah, it's
No?
definitely a tough comparison.
Do you
For
who do you
sure.
like more? Do you like Mac Jones more or Purdy more?
In terms of their talent, I don't know if it's that dissimilar. Maybe I like Mac Jones' size, and
Right.
arm maybe a little better, but then I like Purdy's movement and instinctive off-schedule ability better too. And so, in terms of like physical tangibles, it's not first round pick to Mr. Irrelevant. But I also think Brock Purdy would be a first round pick now that we know how he played, right? I think he might not be a top 10 pick, but I think somebody would have nabbed him in the first round, even with that size, if they knew that he processes and throws this accurately and all of that. But in terms of the intangibles, there's just something about Mac Jones, man. There's something weird about him. I don't like a lot of, or I don't dislike a lot of NFL football players, but there's something about, the dirty hits and the way he's always snapping, but the way he's snapping comes across as whining on the sidelines. I don't know. This sounds kind of personal, and I don't intend it to be, but there's something there that makes me a little bit queasy about Mac Jones. But in terms of talent, Larry, I look, people don't understand how crappy that situation was in New England. They have one good skill player on offense. They have one good skill player, and his name is Ramondre Stevenson. Damian Harris is banged up the entire season. Jacoby Myers is not going to be a starting receiver on any other team. Devontae Parker hasn't been good since he got his money. After he destroyed Stephon Gilmore, his defensive player of the year. Tyquan Thornton was banged up all year, and then their offensive play calling was horrendous. Like Patricia, when Vance Joseph said Patricia calls plays like a defensive coach, that was exactly that. It was the most conservative play calling I've ever seen. Everything was quick game, everything was play action with an in-breaking concept. There was no creativity, nothing to it. It was like, and not actually, there was creativity in terms of the play calling. Like the play design was creative and they were doing quote unquote modern stuff. It's just that the way it was sequenced was also bland, and there was nothing that was just attacking defenses and opening things up. So like if you're gonna just compare the two based on baseline stats, like Mac Jones would also look quite good if he was surrounded by these receivers, this coach, and all of that. But Diet Mac Jones is definitely harsh because I don't think they're that dissimilar actually in terms of talent. And I like Purdy. I like Purdy, like who Purdy is a little bit, not a little bit more, a lot more than I like Mac Jones.
I mean, to me, this is an era where you have or don't have escapability, and you need it. And Purdy has it, Mac Jones doesn't have it. So to me, that's a huge one. You either have escapability or you don't have escapability. And Purdy has phenomenal escapability. And that's kind of one of the things that he's kind of demonstrated that I think everybody's kind of
You know
opened their
what's
eyes to. It's like, wow, this guy can actually scoot away from really fast edge rushers. And
know,
I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. Even when I watched him throw in camp, you don't see that in camp. You only see that when the bullets are live. So you saw it a little bit in the preseason, but the preseason's very much just scripted, get it out of your hand, that kind of thing. There weren't a lot of, hey, you got to make this play, or so we really didn't see that mobility, but man, he's got it, and it's great to see. And that was that's the thing. The elbow's bad. Obviously, it's throwing elbow. It doesn't get any worse than that. But in a way, if the elbow heals, I'm kind of glad that it's not a knee or an ankle, because one of the traits that makes him kind of special is his escapability. And he, in a serious Achilles, or a blown out ACL, now he's got to play the rest of his career with a gigantic brace or something. That could take away some of that mobility that makes him him. So, but that's also a big if on the elbow, right? Because if he can't
no,
throw, he can't play
100%. Right.
quarterback.
Right.
So, but hopefully the elbow is fine. And if so, at least he still has the mobility to get away from these guys.
The one thing I'll say that's quite interesting about this conversation, I've shared this with you off air, I think multiple times throughout middle of the season, and I've talked to about a few people. I just never said it on air because I know how the reaction would be. The funniest part about this entire conversation to me, watching from afar, and I wasn't part of the outrage to if Mac Jones was the pick. I was kind of fine
Right.
with it. If like, okay, I like him as a quarterback. He's a good player. And if Shanahan believes so, okay, let's see what happens. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't be this or he's going to be this or he can be this because I don't know. I thought he was a good player in college, to be honest. I liked him. But it's funny to me because when you look at the stats that Garoppolo has put up in this offense, and then you look at how Purdy elevated and put up even better stats, right? And Mac Jones is a more mobile, bigger, slightly stronger armed, more accurate, and better processing Garoppolo. And it's hilarious to me because I know that not taking Mac Jones was so good for the 49ers, specifically for me, because if they had taken Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones would have put up historic stats for a quarterback in his first 2 years just with this offense, this play calling, all of the way he's surrounded and support. And I would be coined as the number one Mac Jones hater because I would be saying, don't put Mac Jones with Burrow, Herbert, and Allen and Mahomes. He's not those guys. And 49ers fans would be anointing him as the next Joe Montana because his stats would be that good. That's the funniest part of this conversation to me. And I'm glad in a way that it didn't happen because I wouldn't back down from that line of dialogue, but I would despise the way it would go down because I would also be rooting for Mac Jones but people would be if Mac Jones was on this team with these weapons, people would be ridiculous with the things they would say about him. Even Kirk Cousins, who people insult all the time. Do you know the stats Cousins would put up on this offense? MVP type
It'd be
stats.
good. Well, I don't know if he'd win big games, but I got to think it would be good. Todd Labor says, if you can't get Jake Hayner, who do you get? Oh, I mean, there's other guys, Tanner McKee, and we'll see. I kind of like Clayton Tune from Houston. It's beauty in the eye of the beholder. We got this one from Lucas. He says, if Mac was the pick, would the 49ers have a ring? I don't think so.
I don't know about that one.
I would say no. I would say no, they would not.
I wouldn't bet on that one, but I would bet that he would have put up great stats. I mean, I also wanted Justin Fields, and I don't look back, even though Fields has had moderate success in the NFL, I don't look back on that one and say, damn, like I feel like the Niners should have taken Fields. Like as much as there are issues in Chicago, there's also some issues that make me very nervous with Justin Fields, as special as the running is.